episode number 8. Today we're going to be making basic blueberry muffins. I'll have lots of tips and tricks for you today. I appreciate all the 104 subscribers that are on my YouTube channel. Please follow me on Facebook, and where I have a lot of recipes posted for my shows and pictures. So without further ado, let's get baking. Hi, so here we are. We're going to start with the dry ingredients of our blueberry muffin recipe. And today I'm going to be using the KitchenAid stand mixer like we used in a previous episode. I will be making the dry ingredients first and putting that aside in a bowl. And then I will be using the wet ingredients and incorporating the dry into the wet. Also, I'll be showing you a tip along the way to help your muffins and blueberries work better in your mix. So let's do dry ingredients first. In my separate bowl, I will be putting in the flour, baking powder, and salt. I will be using our dry 2-cup, my favorite, measuring cup, and we'll be aerating the flour. And it calls for 2 cups. There we have 2 cups into the bowl. The recipe calls for 1 teaspoon salt and 2 teaspoons baking powder. So we will use that with our teaspoons. This is regular table salt. Next we have baking powder, and the baking powder will be 2 teaspoons. Baking powder, remember, is a rising agent, and we need that for the blueberry muffins to become light and fluffy. Now let's mix this, as you can see, and we'll set the dry ingredients aside. All right, next we'll be doing the wet ingredients. I'm going to be using the, of course, wet measuring cup for liquids, and we will be using it in this bowl today. And we'll be using this paddle on our stand mixer. So we will add the ingredients now. First, it calls for 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. Look on there, and we'll measure 1/4 into the bowl. The next ingredient will be milk. I will be using 2% milk, but you can use whole, and it calls for 1.5 cups. This is a 1.25 measuring cup, so we will add more. Next item on our recipe calls for 1/4 cup melted butter. So we will take the butter cube, as I've taught you in the past, and find 1/4 cup on there, which would be half of a cube, and we'll melt that in the microwave, in a microwave safe dish for 30 seconds. And this will go into the bowl. The next ingredient we have on our list is a special tip I have for this recipe. It will be using sour cream. The sour cream helps the muffin remain moist and adds extra texture and flavor to the muffin mix. And it calls for 1/4 cup of sour cream. Next ingredient we will be using will be vanilla. It calls for 2 teaspoons. Remember back to my earlier episode, what exactly is the cap 1 cap equal? It equals 1 teaspoon. So we'll put 2 of these into the bowl. Next, it calls for sugar. Sugar is a dry ingredient, but it needs to be incorporated with the eggs in this recipe. So I'm going to add them to the wet mixture. So sugar calls for 3/4 cup. Here we are. Let's look into our bowl and see what we got. We have a wet mixture. So let's put this into the stand mixer. As you can see, you put the stand mixer on the back and click it in. And we will be using the paddle. So as you can see, you put the paddle in the hole, up and turn. On our stand mixer on the side here, we're starting with the slowest on the stand mixer, which is number 1, stir, and then we will put it up to 2. Up! Don't forget to put the bowl up. As it's stirring now, I will be adding each egg one at a time and beating until I'm incorporated in. Now, of course, the most important thing in this blueberry recipe would, of course, be the blueberries. So I'm going to teach you a tip of how to make the blueberries not sink to the bottom. We're going to take the blueberries, which measures 2 cups, and put it into a bowl. These blueberries are half frozen and half fresh. And then we will add some of the 2 tablespoons of the dry ingredients in there to coat the blueberries. Now, the reason we do this is because blueberries tend to sink to the bottom of muffins because they are more denser than the dough. So this way, when the flour sticks to the actual batter, and the batter keeps the blueberries where they are in the muffin. Here we have our tablespoon. Let's take 2 of those. We will now take a regular spoon and mix it in. That looks good to me. So now we will take and incorporate the dry ingredients into our wet. Be sure and take your spoonula and scrape down the sides to get all the goodness off the bowl. The batter may look a little thin, but that's okay because we haven't added the blueberries and the rest of the flour. We will do that now, and we will fold it in slowly. Remember when I taught you about the rainy days and the extra moisture that's in the air? You might have to add a little more flour because outside today it's very rainy and very wet. So I'm going to add 2 tablespoons more flour to my batter because that way it will help it to get to be a thicker consistency because there's too much humidity in the air. So let's do that now. So here we have our muffin tins and our ice cream scoop. This scoop, one of these scoops will be enough to fit into each of the muffin containers with the papers lined. You don't have to add the paper liners. You can spray it with Pam. I chose the liners. It keeps it nice and neater. And now we'll scoop and fill them. Okay, so there we have our 12 muffin tins filled, as you can see down here. This recipe will make more than 12 muffins, so that's good. And today, you do not have to do this on your blueberry muffins, but I'm going to add something special. I'm going to add a streusel topping. So let me show you how to add a streusel topping to the muffins before we put them in the oven. But we must preheat our oven first. So let's go preheat to 400 degrees. So our streusel topping we will make for the top of this. The recipe is a half a cup of flour, a half a cup of sugar, and a quarter cup of melted butter. We will put that in a separate bowl, and then we will stir to find the small crumb-like consistency that we will add to the top of our blueberry muffins. Here we have in the bowl our three ingredients. Our three ingredients are in the bowl now, so let's stir them until they come up to a crumb-like consistency. I'll be ready to go in the oven now, as you can see below, but I have one more tip. I will be taking and using Pam a kind of non-stick spray and spraying the outside of your muffin tin, because if you do have any over spillage, it will help it come off easily and not stick to the muffin tin. The oven is ready. It's time to put them in. But before I do, I have a trick. I put in a small ramekin of water in with the blueberry muffins to keep the air moist. And that way it also keeps the moisture in the blueberry muffins for added fluffiness and texture. So let's go ahead and put them in the oven. Now we will set the oven minutes to 20 minutes to start. See you soon. Okay, here we go. I've taken them out of the muffin tin and I've cooled them for 15 minutes on the wooden board. Now, let's try them. Now let's try it. I have my muffin all buttered and taken out of the wrapper. As you can see, the consistency is very airy. Lots of blueberries and a little bit of butter. So good. So light. Crunchy on the top from the streusel. Just delicious. It turned out great. Well, that's it for episode 8 on basic blueberry muffins with a small stash of streusel topping. They were good. I appreciate all the subscribers that I've had today watching my blueberry muffin show on my YouTube channel. I also hope that you do look at my Facebook and see the recipe and pictures that I've posted. I appreciate any comments on my YouTube page, things maybe that you'd like to see, or appreciation for my tips and tricks that you might have learned today. Until then though, from my kitchen, I make it, you bake.